what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, news director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Documents back like you did. And so that's the question.
1,850 boxes.
But that's the question that investigators have, I think, is why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Does it kind of feel like 215 all over again, Marsh? Like, hey, this sounds oddly familiar. I remember this kind of stuff.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. You're a nasty person. And I think listen, I love Trump. I would go and pay. I would do the two drink minimum to see him at a comedy club. I love Trump. Timing's just all wrong on this. But the other thing that struck me as odd there is the audience then laughing after he calls Caitlin Collins, who really did a good job doing this thing last night. And I do have a couple of points to critique, but ultimately she did a good job. But the audience then laughing after he called her a nasty woman, I didn't think that was real cool. Welcome into the show. Coming up here shortly, the big takeaway from this, in Trump's own words, and I absolutely agree with him, the big takeaway from last night's town hall meeting here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9. The Eagle Emergency Health Order on COVID comes to an end. Title 42 comes to an end today. What does that mean for you? Spoiler alert, really nothing. Zac Cantu lives in McAllen, Texas. He's a dude we've talked with on the show over the years. Just a guy, lives along the border, and he's shared some incredible stories about what the reality of what it's like. Spoiler alert there. He says it's even worse than what you see on the TV. He's here at 7:10. Dr. Christopher Sampson, MU Healthcare Emergency Medicine physician. He's here talking about ER visits following the legalization of marijuana here in Missouri. Welcome into it. I am Branden Rathert. Brian Houseworth is here, as is John Marsh, producer Hannah. Anybody see this town hall last night? 874-9390. Vintage Trump, wheeling and dealing and spinning, and as you heard, there's calling, hey, you're a nasty woman. And the biggest point of contention with Caitlin Collins, who ultimately did a good job, but they kept going. 2020 election, January 6th, and the trial, in which we got the decision just the day before. But it's all this stuff in the past that has been talked about, rehashed, then talked about again, and then once again rehashed and put through the ringer. They stuck to a lot of that, and it's like, give me something new. What's new? Here was the big takeaway, in my opinion, last night.
Documents back like you did. And so
excuse me, that's the wrong cut. Let me do this one. Boo!
And you know what? If I don't win, this country is going to be in big trouble. It's so sad to see what's happening.
But no commitment.
Absolutely, positively, unequivocally correct.
And the audience clearly agreed with that. I thought it was interesting that some of the questions that, and by the way, the comment about her being a nasty person, the audience clearly ate that up. I mean, clearly they did. And Caitlin overall, I don't know her, but I think overall she did a good job. It is very hard, whoever you would have in that chair. In our audience here at the Eagle, we know that in the KWS, they think a lot of former President Trump. It'd be very hard to interview him because he'll interrupt, et cetera. But I thought overall she did a good job. It's just there's so many topics. You only have so much time to get to them. It's tough.
And incidentally, Marsh, we get that here all the time. Well, why didn't you ask? Why didn't you ask Speaker Plucker about this? How come you didn't? Hey, we'd love to if we had 90 minutes to sit down with the Speaker of the House, Mr. Plucker, but we don't.
Exactly. And this was done as a town hall forum, which is kind of a limiting kind of format to a degree as well.
Yeah. Trump is genuinely a once-in-a-lifetime political talent. That from Republican strategist Andrew Sarabian. Scotty Nell Hughes, another political commentator. Trump could not have paid for a better hour for his campaign. Trump advisors, well, they're thrilled. Of course, they're going to say that. And I wonder, is it different for for the independents and stuff like that, because that's where, listen, those are the difference makers in the election. It's going to be independents. It's going to be people who's not in the Republican tent or the Democratic tent. Those are the difference makers, and there's no way that you can, in a clear fashion, dispute that. And I don't know, does stuff like this, is there an independent? We go back to the decision the other day. Did it change females' minds? No. Is there somebody who's on the fence about Trump because things are so bad with Biden? Here's the other thing I worry about. I worry that we're getting to the point where people voted for Biden because, well, he's a likable guy. Well, that's beautiful. But look at where we are right now as a country. And it's bad. It really is. And you can't deny that. But they were voting for Biden. A lot of people voted for Biden because they just didn't like Trump. I wonder, is it going to start? Is that tide? Is it going to come back in and people will say, well, we're just going to vote for Trump because we don't like Biden?
If you look at Iowa, or not Iowa, but Wisconsin and Michigan and Georgia, there were a couple other states. I mean, literally a couple of thousand votes. Donald Trump almost won the election. I mean, he didn't come that. I mean, it was very, very close because obviously it's determined in the Electoral College. But here in Missouri, I go back to 2016, and he won by 19 points in this state. 19 points, and quite frankly, had he not been on the ballot, Roy Blunt may have been defeated. Eric Wright, I'm not sure, would have become governor. I mean, Koster and Jason Kander ran two pretty good campaigns, but Trump's coattails in 2016 you could argue, carried them over the top. President Trump remains popular in Missouri, and we'll see what happens. It's here in Missouri, I don't think there's any question Trump would win this state.
So watching it, I don't know. I guess and I agree with Trump. I think that's the big takeaway. Listen, if you don't vote for him, or and it doesn't have to be him. It could be anybody other than Biden. But if people don't vote for somebody other than Biden, the country, it is seriously, we don't do fear tactics and fear mongering, but it is really bad. And you can look around you and look at hundreds of facts that are out there to show we are just not in a good place. You've got a prosecuting attorney in St. Louis who's on her way out because of the progressive mindset. You've got financial problems.
Cherokee Street, by the way, if you saw that, what happened?
Cherokee Street. We're covering this at 6:35. So Kim Gardner, and I'm going to ask this question. Kim Gardner, prosecuting attorney in St. Louis, backed by George Soros. People in St. Louis voted for her because she's a black female and progressive, and they voted for her. And look at all that. Look, now we're going to. And look at where we are now. You have people that are getting out of jail, cases not being prosecuted. You have a judge that said she has willfully spit on, in effect, she has willfully spit on the justice system in America. But hey, she's black and female. I'm voting for her. And you see what that gets you when you don't vote for the best person. We have news on her this morning. Now it's almost like she continues to spit on the face of the general public after what she did earlier this week regarding a shooting at a big celebration in St. Louis. So big takeaway for me from the Trump thing, there's nothing new than what we've been seeing the past 8 years. It was fun to watch, great to watch. Wish they would have stayed off stuff in the past. Let's move forward, and let's do that very thing on the show here. Missouri legislature deserves a huge round of applause this morning. They have voted. There's going to be legislation heading to Governor Mike Parsons' desk, waiting his signature, saying, hey, we want to make sure that we keep sports fair for little girls in Missouri. This is a beautiful thing, in my opinion.
Well, there's two different bills. You're right. There's two different bills, and the one you're referring to, Brandon, would essentially it would bar transgender girls and women from participating on female sports teams. Obviously, we heard different viewpoints. Democrats wept during the debate yesterday, but Cherie Tolson-Reich called into Randy Tobler's show on KWS and the Eagle, and she just says it's awesome news. She says it's a win for women. She has granddaughters. But State Senator Greg Razor issued a statement. He's saying this is, quote, a sad day for the LGBT community. We are hurting, but we will persevere just as we have at every point in our journey when government has acted on the wrong side of history, end of quote.
And you look at a bad day for the LGBT community, for the vast, overwhelming majority of Americans. This is a wonderful day here in Missouri because we're saying we're keeping. Listen, there are far more little girls playing sports than there are little boys that think they are girls. Far more. How many little boys think they are girls compared to how many girls just want to play girls' sports and want it to be fair. You can't deny that either. These are just facts here, man. This is Democrat Richard Brown. He reps the Kansas City area.
When you pass this type of legislation, you are harming people. You're not helping anyone. You're hurting people. You're hurting children in this case.
Doesn't get it. Mr. Brown doesn't. Yeah, you're helping to keep sports fair for little girls, man.
I thought it was interesting that both of these sunshine in 2027. That was something I was not aware of.
Well, and Caleb Browden has taken some heat from the conservative caucus for that, but I think, Caleb would have to tell you this, but I think the only way they could get it through was to make that concession to put the 4-year sunset on it. That clip you just played with Richard Brown, Can you play that again?
I sure can.
When you pass this type of legislation, you are harming people. You're not helping anyone. You're hurting people. You're hurting children in this case.
That's audio from ABC 17.
That is significant because Richard Brown is he's the number 2 Democrat in the Missouri House. And I know him very well, and he's a senior member now of the House. He and Cherie Tolson Reich, they respect each other. I don't know that say they're close friends, but they respect each other. But that you don't normally. He's pretty passionate there, and that's is probably as passionate as I've heard him. He certainly wasn't yelling, but I mean he feels very strongly about it. But in the end, it's just the GOP supermajority. There's one other interesting note, Brandon. The majority leader in the Missouri House, Republican John Patterson of Lee Summit, Blue Springs, I should say, voted against that bill. There were a couple of Republicans that voted no. Obviously, this Chris Sander did, but John Patterson did as well. But it was an interesting soundbite.
As a matter of fact, so there was another Republican lawmaker, and he says, hey, listen, I'm gay, and he was so offended by the move to keep sports fair for little girls, and by the way, and prevent mutilating surgery from people under the age of 18. After you're 18, you want to do that kind of stuff. I think that's great, but not before you're 18. It's simply wrong. Representative Chris Sanders, Jackson County, one of 3 Republicans who voted against these bills. Now he's talking about switching parties.
That's party politics. LGBTQ questioning my party.
So now he doesn't like it. So now he completely wants to leave the party because he doesn't like that legislation. Listen, you want to leave a party because of that thing, because you want to keep sports fair for little girls, because you want to protect the rights of women, because you want to protect little kids, by the way, who don't have a voice. Your parent takes you to go get this gender-changing surgery that lasts a lifetime. Before you're 18, these people are unthinking and uncaring and completely dispassionate, man. Coming up a few minutes from now. So what does it mean now that we're in the formal end? It's happening today. Formal end public health emergency as it relates to COVID. Title 42 coming to an end today. We're going to cover
We've got several partners within the community. All of the emergency shelters are operating at or over capacity. We've got 200 inside the shelter, and we've had up to 810 outside the shelter camped in the alley. So it truly is a humanitarian crisis.
That dude runs like a homeless shelter in El Paso, Texas, and he's saying, I have never seen anything like this in my life, and what this administration has done, it is ruining our city. And today, as Title 42 comes to an end, it could get worse. Good morning. Welcome into Wake Up in Missouri. It's the Daily DC Rundown. By the way, Steph Bell's back on Monday. So House Republicans want to pass a sweeping bill to build more border walls and impose new restrictions on illegal immigrants, creating a hardline counter to President Biden's policies, which is, it's not doing anything. Let them in, then let them vote, because guess who we think they're going to vote for? Bill, no chance of becoming law unless some of the Democrats start using their brains instead of their hearts. But then maybe we would have a chance. And here's what they're saying, of course, and this is what they do. It's cruel. Listen, it's not cruel. And it's not anti-immigrant, it's anti-illegal immigrant. So the formal end of the national public health emergency today is coming to an end. Marsh, let me ask you this.
Ask me.
What does this mean for you?
Nothing.
Me neither. It's just symbolic and psychological.
Maybe a few less people will keep wearing masks to the big box stores.
You know, I see a few of those people, and I'm always, listen, you do you, and I'm not going to bother you. But I still have to wonder about some of these people. Like, man, do you live your life in that much fear that you're still walking around in a mask? And I remember the people in the cars over the past couple years, they'd be in a car by themselves wearing a mask. like the COVID virus is tapping on their window, just dying to get into that car, get into your air vents, and that mask.
Had a Chinese-made air conditioner under the hood.
God. But I just wondered, like, do you really live your life in that much fear? Because living your life in fear, not a cool way to live. So, yeah, the formal end of the national public health emergency, symbolic, psychological step. This will have to be one of the most embarrassing periods, seriously, in American history. When you look back at all, and people still flying, you get onto the Facebook, and the people still use the pictures there with them in the mask. Look, here's my profile picture. Or, hey, I care about my community. I went and got vaccinated. And people are going to look back like they looked at the mall hair in the 80s and parachute pants and mullets and things like that. We're going to look back. Hell, I'm looking back now already with much embarrassment. What happened. By the way, Zac Cantu, dude, lives in Texas along the border. Hear his story, 710, what's happening there this morning. He's not a politico, not a talking head. He's just a dude, lives in Texas. He's here at 710. Talk more about this. Protecting a narrow 4-vote majority. Republican leaders in the House making clear they intend to let the legal process play out with New York Rep. George Santos before they take steps to force his resignation to expel him. Freshman congressman accused Wednesday by feds of embezzling money from his campaign, falsely receiving unemployment funds, and then lying to Congress about his finances could face up to 20 years if convicted. Want to get to some audio later this morning, too. Dude's got a pretty lofty opinion of himself, which matches the narrative. You go around lying to get into an elected office and then he's tried to, I guess, reconcile some of those lies. But what he had to say yesterday after he was formally charged is like, yeah, this meets the definition of narcissism. You want to hear that? And by the way, Dianne Feinstein returned to the Senate yesterday, 2.5 months after she got shingles. Remember, folks said, hey, you're just going to have to leave because you're on this committee. It's important. We can't do anything. Now she's frail and using a wheelchair to get around the Capitol. She is 89 years old. Kimberly Gardner, prosecuting attorney, the outgoing prosecuting attorney in St. Louis, is she pushing it? That story's coming up 6:35.
It's time for your Gary Nolan Minute. Well, with the result of President Trump's civil trial in New York yesterday, I believe the Democrats have succeeded in finding a way to prevent him from prevailing in any general election. May have even hurt his chances in the primary. They'll be running ads constantly reminding everybody that he was found guilty of sexual assault, and we don't want that in the White House. Now, I don't know if that was the plan, but that's the result. You may or may not agree with the result. You may think that the trial was a sham, but frankly, he failed, President Trump, to prepare for that trial. He put his foot in his mouth and he lost. I'm not saying he's guilty, but I'm telling you the Democrats will use this to slam him if he wins the primary. And that's your Gary Nolan Minute.
Here's a free sample of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
In our upcoming election in 2024. Well, I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out. Come on.
Joe Biden wants to be
the guy who's pushing them out, like laying eggs, like a chicken.
Like a chicken, man. Here, kids.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert. Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on 93.9 The Eagle.
Prior to an election, they kept it secret.
When the hypocrisy's so obvious.
At no time did he get raided by the FBI.
You risk popping your eyes right out of your skull with every eye roll.
This is why there's such hypocrisy behind the Bidens once again.
You can always join the conversation right here.
Sick and tired
of the hypocrisy.
Of the hypocrisy.
Limousine liberals are all hypocrites.
93.9 The Eagle. Twitter can be explained.
They are not covering anything on the Twitter files.
On Twitter.
What's the truth? You need to understand this, and that's not going to happen in a tweet.
Get the whole story.
This is an enormous story.
With Glenn Beck.
This is proof positive that the government is colluding to lie to you.
No character limit. Weekdays at noon.
That's saying something.
On 93.9 The Eagle. Politics can be a dirty game.
The whole thing just stinks of corruption and lies.
So let's clean
You know
up.
what Washington looks like to the average American citizen?
Before it gets out of control,
It looks like it's a giant vat filled with sewage.
contact the Department of Sanitation.
None of this meets the smell test.
Sean Hannity.
Get out of the way so we can clean up the mess.
Weekdays at 2 on 93.9 The Eagle. Here's a free sample of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Crazy is Dylan Mulvaney and Jeffrey Marsh having an in-depth discussion about what it truly means to be a woman.
Girlhood becomes stronger when there's more of us behind it.
Only certain people are allowed in?
So, you know what's missing from that conversation about girlhood? Girls? Yeah.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert. Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on 93.9 The Eagle.
Just heard the news.
Just like our world,
An extremely busy week.
life is a busy place. And keeping up
Day-to-day things.
Really, really hard.
is hard.
Like inflation. Issues are tough. Keeping Americans up at night.
We make it easy.
Real answer here.
Simply check in 2, 3, 4 times today,
Issues every single day.
and we'll do the hard work for you.
Easy.
Our cities.
Our country.
Our world.
93.9 The Eagle. Here's a free sample of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
In our upcoming election in 2024. Well, I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out. Come on.
Joe Biden wants to be
The guy who's pushing them out, like laying eggs, like a chicken.
like a chicken, man. Here, kids.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert. Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on 93.9 The Eagle.
Prior to an election, they kept it secret.
When the hypocrisy's so obvious,
At no time did he get raided by the FBI.
you risk popping your eyes right out of your skull with every eye roll.
This is why there's such hypocrisy behind the Bidens once again.
You can always join the conversation right here.
Sick and tired
Of the hypocrisy.
of the hypocrisy.
Limousine liberals are all hypocrites.
93.9 The Eagle. Twitter can be explained.
They are not covering anything on the Twitter files.
On Twitter.
What's the truth? You need to understand this, and that's not going to happen in a tweet.
Get the whole story.
This is an enormous story.
With Glenn Beck.
This is proof positive that the government is colluding to lie to you.
No character limit. Weekdays at noon.
That's saying something.
On 93.9 The Eagle. Politics can be a dirty game.
The whole thing just stinks of corruption and lies.
So let's clean up.
What Washington looks like to the average American citizen?
Before it gets out of control,
It looks like it's a giant vat filled with sewage.
contact the Department of Sanitation.
None of this meets the smell test.
Sean Hannity.
Get out of the way so we can clean up the mess.
Weekdays at 2 on 93.9 The Eagle.
Has been in the news throughout the year. Our staff certainly understand the influx of migrants, but still the core services remain.
That's Ashley Wiskerchen. She is with Catholic Charities of Central and Northern Missouri in Jefferson City, chatting with our news partners at ABC 17. And yeah, here's what we're doing for the influx of illegal immigrants. By the way, there's already an influx of illegal immigrants, even right here in mid-Missouri. And we're expecting more. Title 42 comes to an end today. And Alejandro Mayorkas, you got to hear what Alejandro Mayorkas had to say, 710. He's still reminding, because he hasn't reminded us enough. He's got to keep reminding this. Hey, this ain't my fault, y'all know, right? He's blaming it on Congress. And he's blaming it on climate change. And then he just keeps shifting the blame. But you know who he's not blaming, John?
Who would that be?
Himself.
Yeah.
No ownership. No responsibility. Hey, I messed up. Or, hey, I'm just not doing my job. Or, hey, I'm smug and arrogant, not doing my job, and I don't care. And frankly, since I am so narcissistic and incredibly into myself and don't take ownership of my mistakes and I think my stuff don't stink, I'm going to rub it in your face.
What are they talking for El Paso? I think the mayor was on and said they're expecting 10,000 people a day to come across from Juarez into El Paso.
You think about the population of some of these towns here in mid-Missouri. You think of Ashland, not quite 4,000. Centralia, not quite 4,000. You think of Fulton and places like that. Population of Fulton trampling through your front yard on a daily basis. The entire...
Crazy.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers. Just insane. Frankly, it's frightening. Mike, text 874-9390. My daughter is moving to El Paso, and I fear for her safety. It means more to people than you think. Amen. It does matter because it's affecting us here. Your taxpayer dollars and all of that stuff. It's illegal immigration. Zac Cantu, he's here at 7:10. Also 7:35 this morning, Dr. Christopher Sampson, MU Healthcare Emergency Medicine Physician ER. We're going to be talking about ER visits following the legalization of weed. My contention is, and I'm not a doctor, but these visits to ER, people say, oh, and since weed became legal, they're going to the ER. And more often than not, it's not because there is anything physically wrong with people. Here's what happens. They get twisted up in their head because one of the things that pot can do sometimes, it can make you paranoid and freak out. And you get all juxtaposed and you're beside yourself and you freak out and then your heart starts racing because your head's scared. And now you think something really bad's going to happen. Nothing bad's going to happen. But they're going to the emergency rooms. That's my contention.
I'm dying. I'm dying.
Oh, my God. And they're not. I want to see what he has to say. He's here at 7:35 this morning, 874-9390, 874-9390. I love this. We were talking about, who is the best troll? Seriously.
Donald Trump?
Okay, you know who's the second best troll?
Locally?
Yeah.
Chuck Basie.
Yeah, and he's good at it.
He really is.
And
it's so entertaining.
It's beautiful. And then I like this when we get listeners that try to troll. Like listener Tim texted in, hey, I don't know if you've noticed, but your new buddy, Dean, the Speaker of the House, I don't know why this guy, because he's a guest on our show. We're buddies. Huh. I don't know about you and your lost listeners, but I think we should. Keep them coming, Tim. 874-9390. Keep them coming, buddy. We love sharing that stuff on the air, and we appreciate and love the fact, Tim, that you are a member of the Wake Up Mid-Missouri family. And I hope you go and tell your friends and family, seriously, Tell your friends and family, hey, I love Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I listen all the time. 874-9390. Welcome into the show. Stephanie is back on Monday. I am Branden Rathert's producer, Hannah. John Marsh is here, as he is Brian Houseworth. Santos. George Santos, this guy.
What a dude.
Yeah. And what he said yesterday after he was, so he's the guy, congressman, New York, elected, and then it came out, and I don't know if New York media didn't do their job or what happened, that they weren't uncovering this whole house of lies that he was telling that got him elected. Since then, he's been saying, hey, I've tried to atone for those, and I'm sorry. You've got calls from even Republicans are saying, dude, you got to get out of office. But then they look at the count in the House, John. They're like, yeah, but we've got a really thin margin. Morals be damned. Screw being true to ourselves.
It was just a little creative work on his resume. Nothing intentional.
Yeah. And since we only have a razor-thin majority in the House, maybe we can bend our moral values a little bit. There was a country song. Was it George Strait? If you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. I don't know who did that song, but I remember that line from a country song. But George Santos, and he fits and I think reinforces the opinions from a lot of people about him. And I don't know what it's like on the House floor for this guy, if he's being avoided like the plague, like Republicans are like, because we've all had that friend that does something really bad, like the night before they got really drunk, and the next day you're still at the lake house, but everybody's avoiding you because you're slime and bad news, really. Well, yes.
Pointing and giggling.
Yes, that's it. And yesterday, following his indictment, kind of got, he just reinforced what people are thinking about him.
We made it here. Look at this. All right, so I know you all have questions.
Come a little closer.
I know you all have questions. I know that everybody's been waiting for the moment for me to come out and talk to you guys.
Is it just me? He sounds like he's got some he's got a lofty viewpoint of himself. I know you all have been waiting for me to come out. It's like, sounds like something Catherine Sasser, Columbia Public School Board, would do. Resign. I'm going to use this board meeting to make a political statement and resign. That's what George Santos sounds like. Sounds like Catherine Sasser. He just sounds like he's awfully into himself.
Look, this is the beginning of the ability for me to address and defend myself. The reality is it's a witch hunt.
I like the guy in the back going, shh.
Shut up.
We're listening to genius here.
And you know it's going to be good stuff, man. And they were right. It was good stuff. It's a witch hunt. I don't know. Maybe it is. But it's just a Joe Schmo with some flip-flops and some barstool knowledge of politics. I don't think it's a witch hunt.
It's you.
Yeah, it's you. It's not a witch hunt. You're a congressman from New York. I don't know that people go on a witch hunt for people like you, not to diminish.
If he was a Democrat, do you think the outcry would be at the same level?
Oh, gosh, no. Not at all. Just not at all. So he's facing charges. It has to do with campaign financing and then lying to Congress. And I think for the overall good of the party, he should resign. Again, these people, they get so selfish. They're so into themselves. And again, I think you can draw the line from him to Catherine Sasser that, hey, listen, I am more important than anything else. And they simply have it wrong. I spoke with Chuck Basie yesterday, former state rep.
Yeah.
Ran for Columbia Public School Board and did not get elected. And you know why he didn't get elected? Because it's Columbia. It's an incredibly progressive town. Anyhow, so now you've got Catherine Sasser who resigns, and she wants to leave the state because she doesn't like how things are as it relates to transgender legislation. John and I got to looking at the school board race from the recent elections. Chuck Basie came in fourth place. Well, top three vote getters, they all went on to be on the school board. Chuck Basie came in fourth place. So if the Columbia Public School District, if they wanted to do the right thing, because they don't do the right thing, and parents know it, teachers in the school system, teachers in the Columbia Public School District know that they're just, what they do is really inhumane. You've got, what's happened with kids in these little boxes over the years, how they deal with parents taking kids to a show where there's drag performers. That's the resume of the Columbia Public School District. Here is an opportunity for CPS and Dr. Yearwood and the mouthpiece for the school district to redeem themselves. Chuck Basie came in 4th place in that election. It was a month ago? Why not just elevate the 4th place vote getter into that position? Wouldn't that be the honorable thing to do?
I wish I could be a fly on the wall inside the administration building right now, because...
Did you hear what producer Hannah said this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWS? Producer Hannah was encouraging and calling out the CPS.
No. I'm just saying it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with, because we all know that they don't want Chuck there.
Oh, and they won't do it because they have no moral fiber.
So they're going to have a very creative reason as to why they're not going to do that.
That's probably written in their bylaws. What do you want to bet? It says if there is a vacancy on the board, the rest of the board will get together and look at a list of nominated candidates. I bet that's what it says.
And who is that progressive board going to choose? Yeah. Another progressive.
Not Chuck.
Because not everybody, there are 2 key players especially, and there might be more that I'm not even aware of, 2 key players in the Columbia Public School District are dishonorable human beings. And I say that with comfort. I say that with confidence. They really are. Human beings. I mean, just dishonorable, indecent human beings. But if they were to do the right thing and maybe earn some equity with this community, they'd say, you know what? Election was a month ago. Chuck Basie came in 4th. We'll move him up. So Chuck Basie told me last night he is going to apply because now it's an application process. And how much money do you have in your bank account right now, Hannah? Because I'm getting ready to bet some of your money.
$4.63.
I'm betting $4.63.
There you go.
I'm betting Hannah's wedding money, which is coming up on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. I'm betting Hannah's wedding money, Columbia Public School District, they'll be consistent with their dishonorable treatment of taxpayers and of parents and of little kids, by the way. They will continue their dishonorable behavior, and they won't even consider Chuck Basie. I believe in it so much, I am betting $4.63.
Whoa, big spender.
So Chuck says, yeah, he is indeed running. Come on. Oh, by the way, here's the phone number for the Columbia Public School District. Please call this number. Front office, 214-3400. You should just call them and say, hey, can I speak to Dr. Yearwood or whoever it is going to be making these decisions? Call 214-3400. That's the front office, 214-3400. Call them and say, hey, this is what we would like to see happen. I am a taxpayer. I pay for your schools. I live here. I have grandkids that go to your school. My kids go to your school. This is what I want you to do. 214-3400. By the way, yesterday, Dow down almost 74 points. How are futures looking? We're going to be covering that coming up. Morning Bell, 8:25 this morning. Marsh, what is Kim Gardner doing here? Did you see this story?
I think that was the question that A.G. Bailey asked all along.
Yeah. So Kim Gardner, eventually, after a lot of pressure and saying, I'm not going to resign, she's resigning. But now there was an incident. People shot over the weekend in St. Louis. Matter of fact, in a span of like 11 hours or 24 hours, like 11 people were shot in St. Louis because that's what progressivism does for people, okay? And they have this woman, pictures, holding a gun. She shot people. They're not charging her. They're saying there's not enough evidence. They say, well, we don't have cooperation from the witness, which is common in those types of neighborhoods. People, when they get shot, crimes, they don't snitch because snitches get stitches, if not put in the ground. They have this woman on video holding a gun. Not enough evidence. My goodness. All right, coming up just a few minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm wondering, there's another person in Hollywood that's kind of said, you know what, this wokeness, whatever it is you want to call it, canceling, this is wrong. And I have questions. I wonder if the
is a product of its era. And it's not, no film should be revised based on the lenses we now are either voluntarily or being forced to peer through.
Steven Spielberg recently, when asked, so they did like a 20th anniversary edition of the movie E.T. I think it came out in 2002, and they, digital effects and all this. One of the things they did is they obscured the guns and changed the guns into radios that the FBI agents were carrying because, we can't have little kids sing law enforcement with guns. It'll freak them out, man. And he's saying, I regret that. And he says we shouldn't use current standards and judge on things that happened all those years ago. Richard Dreyfuss recently, he was asked about, so Oscars are going to change what they do, and I'm sure it'll make a big difference in the ratings. But they're saying for a movie to be nominated, you got to have X number of this and that color, and let's get a couple of these sprinkled in there. In the interest of diversity, don't hire the best people for the job. It's diversity. Richard Dreyfuss speaking out on that.
They make me vomit. No one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give in to the latest, most current idea of what morality is.
And he's right there. So is what Hollywood wants to do. So you got to have this and have one of these, and let's put in one of those so you could get somebody. Hey, we're doing a biopic on Hitler. Who can we get to play Hitler? Well, how about
Denzel?
Yeah. How about Cuba Gooding Jr.? We need to get him because we need a black in the movie. Well, how about Sandra Bullock? She can play the part of Hitler.
Well, when you talk about Spielberg movies, what would Raiders of the Lost Ark been if they'd taken all the Nazi symbolism out of it and all that? It wouldn't make any sense.
So now another Hollywood celeb getting on board. Tom Hanks has opened up about his thoughts on book censorship after the release of his first novel, and he says, listen, censorship of these old books, how short-sighted is this? And he said, quote, let me decide what I'm offended by. Tom Hanks, thank you. I don't want lawmakers or progressives telling me I am supposed to be offended by this. I'm supposed to be bothered by that. Tom Hanks, let me decide what I'm...
Yeah, you got to remember, this is a guy who spent months talking to a volleyball.
So... And what I'm wondering with Tom Hanks, Richard Dreyfuss, Steven Spielberg, I'm wondering if they see this snapback because all this woke stuff, we got to elect black lesbians to be the mayor of Chicago. Well, how come? Well, because she's black and she's a lesbian. Yeah, but does she have good policy? Doesn't matter. All that woke stuff and their snapback. And I call this the snapback. We saw what happened at D.C. Folks got upset with Joe Biden because he supported tougher crime measures in Washington, D.C. So I wonder if, like a Hanks and a Spielberg and a Dreyfuss, they get it. The public is tired of this BS, and they're going, yeah, I agree. They're just doing it to save face. Title 42 comes to an end today. We're going to take you to the border a few minutes from now. Coming up 7:10, a guy who lives along the border going to be telling us the reality of what it's like. Spoiler alert, he says it's worse than even what you see on TV.
What is happening?
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
The president on day one delivered a solution. He delivered immigration reform legislation that we had hoped Congress would act on swiftly. They haven't. Within the constraints of a broken immigration system, we are doing so much.
I cannot overemphasize that our current situation is the outcome of Congress leaving a broken, outdated immigration system in place for over 2 decades.
All right, Alejandro Mayorkas, Department of Homeland Security Secretary. It's Congress's fault, and Congress isn't the only isn't the only place where he's leveled criticism, and it's the fault of this, the fault of that. He has said Trump is at fault. He has said, listen, there's all kinds of things that are at work here. It's the climate. It's this. It's that. None of this is on me. No ownership for what's happening. Meanwhile, real-life consequences. Today, Title 42. This is in conjunction with the public emergency public health order, in effect coming to an end today as it relates to the government pandemic that started in 2020. Title 42, and there is a crush at the border. We're going to be chatting with Zac Cantu. He's a guy that lives along the border in Texas, lives in McAllen, Texas, and he's been joining us several times over the years. Always tells compelling stories about the reality of what's happening there. Also, 7:35, Dr. Christopher Sampson, ER. He's an ER physician. He's going to be joining us now that weed's been legal here in Missouri for a couple of months. How's it doing with emergency room visits? I think we have differing points of view on this. He is here at 7:35. Welcome. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
I met a lovely young 94-year-old woman at a restaurant last night who came up, me and a friend having dinner, and she comes up and she gets to chat. 94 years old. Her and her husband get up every morning and they turn on the radio, and her big question, how come producer Hannah doesn't use her last name? That was what she wanted to know.
That's so sweet.
Show. Marsh is here, too.
Yes, I am.
Second biggest question she had is, Marsh's stash really as epic as you say it is?
That's right.
It is. My name is Branden Rathert. Brian Houseworth is here, too. All right, let's go to McAllen, Texas. This is where we find Zac Cantu, lives along the border in McAllen, Texas. I want to start with this, Zac. What is it like to live there? This is something you deal with on a daily basis, an influx of illegal immigration, gotten worse since the events of January the 20th of 2021. But realistically, what is it like for you every day where you live?
Well, it's a mix of everything, right? So the headlines that you see about people coming through, not at the ports of entry, just in the wilderness of things, that's 100% true. But it's not like Dawn of the Dead where people are flooding the cities and they're flipping cars over and setting things on fire and looting. It's not like that. And I'll tell you why. It's because you have there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Government entities, non-governmental organizations like Catholic Charities, city resources are put to moving people from where they're found out in the wilderness to tent facilities. For example, we sacrificed one of our parks to house migrants in Ansel Dewis Park over in Mission, which is a few miles from McAllen here in South Texas. In Brownsville, they processed about 37,000 people in the month of April, I believe we were told yesterday by Border Patrol. That's just for the month of April. It's a lot of people, but at the same time, like I said, there's a lot of resources that are trying to keep this problem away from the general populace within the cities. And it just gets more complicated over time as Title 42 expires at midnight tonight, which is something that we discovered yesterday. It was like we thought it was going to expire, Wednesday into Thursday, and we were talking, or we had listened to that speech from Mayorkas, and he was mentioning, oh yeah, it's Thursday night it expires. If we're just finding that out, imagine what the guys in the middle of nowhere are thinking, that hey, today's the day we can get in, and tonight is going to be like this big Black Friday sale on immigration.
Man, and that's interesting. This is why we've loved chatting with you over the years, because people, where we are, we're nestled in the heart of America. Heck, right here in mid-Missouri, we're nestled in the heart of Missouri, and we think of illegal immigration in national terms and the president and this and that. But I thought it was interesting. You were talking about what your city governments are doing there. Talk a little bit about kind of the strain on what cities are having to do.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, there was a migrant camp that was beginning to get set up pretty close to where the general public is. And some people had posted videos online, hey, they're building this thing, what gives? And there was a big uproar about it, so they had to find another place to move it, to locate it, because we're running out of space to put people as they're coming into the country, right? And you kind of, for the sake of keeping the peace, you kind of don't want to have everybody mixing and mingling together, and so you just want to kind of move them. And I had mentioned we have a tent city set up at Ansel Dewis Park in Mission, and that's where we house a lot of people, and that's where that facility ended up being. City resources are put to help move people from Border Patrol to non-governmental organizations, and I believe we're reimbursed by the federal government, but I mean, you know how quickly that happens.
Yep. So it's a mess.
Yeah,
so we think everything on national terms and everything that happens, but you've got, and I'm trying to liken it to what happens around here. So you have a government, let's say the size of Columbia, Missouri. If we're comparing it to your town, you have a town, you have a government entity, in effect, the size of Columbia, that's dealing with thousands and thousands of illegal immigrants coming into their stuff, and then resources, city resources that detract from other things that they should be doing, because you've got this influx of illegal immigration that's happening. Zac Cantu joining us on the show, lives in McAllen, Texas. He's hanging out with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Zach, walk us through some of the semantics of this from the Border Patrol. Title 42 expires, and then they've talked about Title 8 expulsions. What's that mean for the general public that isn't right in the middle of this?
Well, Title 42 and Title 8, they're just means of removing people from the country, but they're having to do with asylum claims, and we were speaking with Border Patrol yesterday, and it's basically like nothing's changed. You still have to have a hearing, and Lord knows what happens from the time that you get told, hey, you need to show up in court by this time at this place, and it could be months until that happens. And in the meantime, well, what are we going to do with them? Well, we have to release them somewhere. They have to go somewhere. And so here's the thing. You need immigration attorneys. You need immigration judges. And it's not like, I don't know if you've seen like Toy Story 2, where it's that aisle full of Buzz Lightyears, and you can just crack open a pack of immigration attorneys. Like, it takes specialization and training and moving them to where it's not like they're just sitting in a warehouse waiting to go. You know, you got to find these guys and you got to send them out there. And there's just way too many people coming in to get them processed in a timely manner. And you have Mayorkas and Biden. They were talking about, you know, they're over here trying to pass the buck and put it on Congress, which they have a legitimate point, because this is something that it's one of those things. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. A lot of this stuff is happening last minute, too little, too late, to try to alleviate the burden, to soften the blow as Title 42 expires tonight. But you got the plight of these people that are coming in from Central American countries. We've had reports of people coming in from Russia, Ukraine, China, where else? Just multiple countries, places you wouldn't even expect. They're coming in through the southern border. And for these guys, they're walking on foot, right? It's not like you get a plane ticket and you can, you know, it's round trip and you can just go back if they tell you no. They're going to try their luck and try to come in. You know, it's the worst camping trip ever. You got the clothes on your back, you got a backpack. You have to brace the elements and endure the wilderness, and you get up there and you start thinking there's tens of thousands of people out there. How do you feed them? How do you clothe them? Catholic Charities and other organizations here are wondering, what do we do about sanitation? There's just way too much to clean. Some people have measles, some people have mumps, some people have chicken pox, some people have parasites. There was a bed bug infestation over in El Paso. You know, there's so many things that they're trying to account for with this mass of people that are waiting to come in. And it's just such a strain that a lot of it, like I mentioned, it just feels like it's too little too late. They could have been doing things way longer. They could have been acknowledging the situation way before this even happened. It doesn't matter what side of the political fence you may be sitting on, no pun intended, but you have to admit, if you're somebody who's for immigration or if you're somebody who's against immigration, you have to admit the Biden administration has not done a great job of executing this.
And that's putting it politely. Not done a great job of quelching illegal immigration. 2 questions in about 1 minute. So what's happening in your town today, right where you live? What's happening today as we prepare for Title 42 to come to an end?
Well, you've been hearing National Guard troops have been coming down. Some of the military has been coming down as Joe Biden has sent in. But these guys are just paper pushers. They're just going to help try to alleviate the paperwork burden as the Border Patrol goes back to the fields to fight this problem. And they've been running drills, and there's a big military presence right now. But I mean, the people are already here. They're not just going to be like, oh, well, we're going to go home. So they're going to try their best to come into the country.
Wow, it's got to be an insane, unsettling scene. Final question. So I'm looking at U.S. Census stats where you live. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Hispanic or Latino, 86% of the folks in McAllen, Texas. Like, as a city, as a town, what is the view on illegal immigration where you live, where you have a town of 86% of folks that are Hispanic or Latino?
You have an interesting split. I mean, it's just like anywhere else. There's people that believe that they shouldn't be here in the first place, and there's people that believe that, hey, they're just trying to make a better life for themselves. You can just let them in. Oh, you poor things, just let them in and try to help make them have a better life here. But it's how do you say it? It's like it's just like anywhere else, where if you had people that came in the legal way and they worked really hard to come in the legal way, and you have all these guys that are just basically showing up and being let in through the back door. So I'm sure there's some hurt feelings about that.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. Zach, I know you have been dealing with a lot. You're dealing with a lot today, and we've appreciated your time over the years coming on and just kind of sharing from an everyman's perspective what's happening from somebody that lives along the border. Zac Cantu, man, you take care, and we're all thinking of you today, okay?
Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Sergio says hi, by the way.
Oh, Sergio Sanchez says hello. Well, tell Sergio Sanchez that I said hello. I like that, man. Coming up just a few minutes from now, we are going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah. What's smoking today, Hannah?
I've got an idea for Mother's Day, if anybody's still looking for ideas.
We need some, and thank you, by the way, for doing this on Thursday, because, radio shows tomorrow. Hey, here's some ideas for Mother's Day. Well, by tomorrow. 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:25.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
Today I'm doing especially the male listeners.
The dudes?
Yes.
Are you stereotyping about our ability to... Okay.
I'm trying to do a public service, and it's a reminder that this weekend is Mother's Day.
That's right.
Sunday. So do not forget.
And I love that you're doing this. By the way, great foresight on your part to be able to do this today, because what happens tomorrow? Everybody, what are you going to do? And you're covering it today.
Yeah, I'm aware. I am. That's how nice of a person I am, giving the gentleman a whole extra day to scramble.
I'm listening.
If you need a last-minute idea, there are some restaurants that are doing Mother's Day specials, which isn't really a big surprise. The restaurant that did surprise me, though, is Hooters. Hooters is doing a buy 10, get 10 on their wings for your mothers. And it just poses the question, fellas, would you take your mother to Hooters? Of all places.
Yeah, my mom, she's got an amazing sense of humor. She'd be down to go into Hooters. Have you been into a Hooters, Hannah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I think there's still this, as we talk about stereotyping men and our inability to get really good gifts for moms for Mother's Day, the stereotype that exists around Hooters to this day.
Sounds like a Jeff Foxworthy bit almost. You know, did you take your mom to Hooters for Mother's Day? I said, yeah, she was working the noon rush.
Oh, man.
You might be a redneck.
There you go.
You know, I'm actually surprised places like Hooters are allowed to still exist.
You know,
if you
that's
think
a good
about
point.
it, because the whole premise is, objectifying women to sell food. And it's just, in today's...
Oh, that's not the premise of Hooters. That is not the premise.
They've got really good wings.
Yeah, they've got good wings, and the women...
I'm just saying, if the food was really that good, would the girls have to dress like that?
I don't know.
You do if you want to work at Hooters.
But yeah, I am just surprised that places like Hooters still exist in today's woke world.
Good point.
And is there like a male equivalent?
John, I hear opportunity knocking.
Oh,
I don't know. They serve wings at Chippendales? I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. And so Hooters, because, it plays off the name. Hooters is a euphemism for the female breast, or at least it used to be. I don't think anybody uses that anymore. So if you're going to do a male version of Hooters and you're to use the same premise in naming the place, what do you call that restaurant?
Hang on, I'm Googling to see if this is a thing.
874-9390 would be the text.
Let's defer to the listeners on that one.
Yeah, because we'll get in trouble. But our listeners, you at 874-9390, what would you call a restaurant that's based on the Hooters concept, but it's dudes? The name is Hooters. It's a slang term for the female breast. So if we're using a slang term for any dude stuff, what would the name of that restaurant be? 874-9390.
The first thing that comes up when I Google the male equivalent of Hooters is Tallywhackers in Dallas.
All right, then.
Well, isn't that special? 874-9390. 874-9390. Coming up and that's what's hot with Hannah. Coming up 8:25. Dow was down yesterday, 73 points. How's it looking today with the futures opening? We're covering that at 8:25. And then coming up 5 minutes from now, Dr. Christopher Sampson, ER visits now that weed is legal at one local hospital. And Clay and Lisa, I'm guessing, might have some suggestions on what we would name the male equivalent restaurant. If we did a restaurant like Hooters, but it's dudes, what would you name that? Your thoughts? Coming up 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up, Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS.
It's time for your Gary Nolan Minute. Well, with the result of President Trump's civil trial in New York yesterday, I believe the Democrats have succeeded in finding a way to prevent him from prevailing in any general election. May have even hurt his chances in the primary. They'll be running ads constantly reminding everybody that he was found guilty of sexual assault, and we don't want that in the White House. Now, I don't know if that was the plan, but that's the result. You may or may not agree with the result. You may think that the trial was a sham, but frankly, he failed, President Trump, to prepare for that trial. He put his foot in his mouth and he lost. I'm not saying he's guilty, but I'm telling you the Democrats will use this to slam him if he wins the primary. And that's your Gary Nolan Minute.
Here's a free sample of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Crazy is Dylan Mulvaney and Jeffrey Marsh having an in-depth discussion about what it truly means to be a woman.
Girlhood becomes stronger when there's more of us behind it. Only certain people are allowed in.
So you know what's missing from that conversation about girlhood? Girls? Yeah.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert. Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on 93.9 The Eagle.
Just heard the news.
Just like our world,
An extremely busy week.
life is a busy place. And keeping up
Day-to-day things.
Really hard.
is hard.
Like inflation. Issues are tough. Keeping Americans up at night.
We make it easy.
Real answer here.
Simply check in 2, 3, 4 times today,
Issues every single day.
and we'll do the hard work for you.
Easy.
Our cities.
Our country.
Our world.
93.9 The Eagle. Here's a free sample of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
In our upcoming election in 2024. Well, I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out. Come on.
Joe Biden wants to be
The guy who's pushing them out, like laying eggs, like a chicken.
like a chicken, man. Here, kids.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert. Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on 93.9 The Eagle.
Prior to an election, they kept it secret.
When the hypocrisy's so obvious,
At no time did he get raided by the FBI.
you risk popping your eyes right out of your skull with every eye roll.
This is why there's such hypocrisy behind the Bidens once again.
You can always join the conversation right here.
Sick and tired.
The hypocrisy.
Of the hypocrisy.
Limousine liberals are all hypocrites.
93.9 The Eagle. Twitter can be explained
They are not covering anything on the Twitter files.
on Twitter.
What's the truth? You need to understand this, and that's not going to happen in a tweet.
Get the whole story
This is an enormous story.
with Glenn Beck.
This is proof positive that the government is colluding to lie to you.
No character limit. Weekdays at noon
That's saying something.
on 93.9 The Eagle. Politics can be a dirty game,
The whole thing just stinks of corruption and lies.
so let's clean
You know
up
what Washington looks like to the average American citizen?
before it gets out of control.
It looks like it's a giant vat filled with sewage.
Contact the Department of Sanitation.
None of this meets the smell test.
Sean Hannity.
Get out of the way so we can clean up the mess.
Weekdays at 2 on 93.9 The Eagle. Here's a free sample of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Crazy is Dylan Mulvaney and Jeffrey Marsh having an in-depth discussion about what it truly means to be a woman.
Girlhood becomes stronger when there's more of us behind it. Only certain people are allowed in.
So you know what's missing from that conversation about girlhood? Girls? Yeah.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert. Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on 93.9 The Eagle.
Just heard the news.
Just like our world,
An extremely busy week.
life is a busy place. And keeping up
Day-to-day things.
Really hard.
is hard.
Like inflation. Issues are tough. Keeping Americans up at night.
We make it easy.
Real answer here.
Simply check in 2, 3, 4 times today,
Issues every single day.
and we'll do the hard work for you.
Easy.
Our cities.
Our country.
Our world.
93.9 The Eagle. Here's a free sample of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
In our upcoming election in 2024. Well, I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out. Come on.
Joe Biden wants to be
The guy who's pushing them out, like laying eggs, like a chicken.
like a chicken, man. Here, kids.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert. Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on 93.9 The Eagle.
Prior to an election, They kept it secret.
When the hypocrisy's so obvious,
At no time did he get raided by the FBI.
you risk popping your eyes right out of your skull with every eye roll.
This is why there's such hypocrisy behind the Bidens once again.
You can always join the conversation right here.
Sick and tired
The hypocrisy.
of the hypocrisy.
Limousine liberals are all hypocrites.
93.9 The Eagle.
Corruption, poverty, climate change.
Alejandro Mayorkas, Department of Homeland Security. Security. He's blamed everything, and he hasn't taken ownership. I have failed. Kamala Harris has failed, and this is all important stuff because Title 42 is coming to an end today, and hopefully you heard our conversation that we had about 20 minutes ago with Zac Cantu, who's just a guy who just lives in McAllen, Texas. I've loved talking to this guy over the years because we see the stuff on TV, and it's like, okay, how much of this is filtered through a political lens? And that's why I've enjoyed the conversations with Zac over the years because this is what it's like to live here, man. This is what's going on. And you heard as he talked about preparations where he lives for this crush of illegal immigrants coming in. And I thought rather a very thoughtful answer when we asked about this because people that are against illegal, we're talking illegal immigration. Well, you're just cold and heartless, and it's because it's brown people. And what about? No, it's not. We're all decent human beings. And part of being a decent human being is you abide by the law. And the other thing that happens is you got to measure your return on investment, if you will. And what's happening here, the amount of cost and the amount of problems that just letting people cross the border causes us, whether it's your taxpayer dollars, whatever it is, it causes way more problems than what it's worth. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie is back on Monday. There's Mr. John Marsh. Producer Hannah is here.
Hello.
My name is Branden Rathert, 874-9390. I feel really bad. So there's and he'd been on the show over the years, Dr. Christopher Sampson, good dude, ER physician, MU Healthcare. And he's coming on. We're going to talk about, by the way, marijuana right now, recreational marijuana is on par to gross over $1 billion this year, or for a 12-month period over $1 billion. We're going to be talking about ER visits as it relates to marijuana, but we've had to sidestep a little bit. What's hot with Hannah? Hooters restaurant doing a special for Mother's Day. I'd take my mom to Hooters. I mean, she's got a great sense of humor. And we got one of our texts says, yeah, my daughter used to work at Hooters, and now she's in college and says she made bank, and usually it was families that were in the restaurant. But there's this old, and I don't think it applies anymore, this old stereotype about Hooters. But we got to wondering if you had a male equivalent to a Hooters, because Hooters is supposed to be the owl thing, you know, whoo. But really, it's a slang term for a female breast. So if we were to apply that to a male Hooter restaurant, what would we get? 874-9390. Clay, welcome into the show. What'd you come up with?
Well, before I tell you my answer, I want to apologize for bringing this level of stupid so early in the morning.
We're sorry, too.
Oh, no.
By the way, there's a doctor on hold right now listening to all of this unfold.
My apologize to him and all of his time he spent at his career. So anyway, there is already an equivalent, a male equivalent to Hooters. They're actually failing across the country, unfortunately. And there's one on the business loop that used to be open. Very simply, is just Long John Silver's. And like I said, I apologize once more.
Now, all right, Clay.
Long John Silver's for sure is closed, and they're also closed in Jeff City.
Dr. Sampson, I'm sorry, man.
No problem.
All right. Man, we have this very intelligent, he's one of the best at his craft here in mid-Missouri. He's an ER physician, MU Healthcare. He was supposed to be on like 3 minutes ago, and he's on hold. Listen to some guy tell 16-year-old jokes on the news talk station of record in mid-Missouri. Dr. Sampson, Chris Sampson is joining us. Dr. Christopher Sampson, MU. Oh, by the way, wait till you see the text we have coming up. Again, the Wake Up Mid-Missouri family never fails to deliver. And right now, we're not able to respond to all of the texts because it's that hot right now.
Yes.
We counted 30 texts within a matter of 2 minutes after we asked for suggestions. That is easily the hottest item ever.
You're welcome, guys.
Keep them coming. Awesome. Okay, Dr. Sampson, welcome into the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on again.
Glad you could be here. Recreational marijuana, it's legal now. Looking at numbers, it's going to be over $1 billion, and that's outpacing a lot of other states in their first year of recreational marijuana. One of the things that people said, we can't do this, they said health issues. ER visits as it relates to recreational marijuana. Are you seeing an increase since this stuff went legal back in February?
Yeah, we are. We are seeing a bit of an increase in patients who are presenting. It's often more just due to people doing too much. Mm-hmm. That's really the main reason.
Okay. So, and that's, I guess that was kind of what I was going to ask, because opponents, and listen, I don't use recreational weed, and I haven't for a long time. I just don't. But I wonder, as people were saying, well, this is why you shouldn't legalize it. It causes more ER visits. You said people come in and they're presenting with some issues. Okay, you smoke too much marijuana. What physically is wrong with these people when they show up at the ER?
Well, a lot of times if they sort of quote unquote overdose or take too much, they are often very anxious. That's probably the main symptom that people present with. And it's just because a lot of people don't realize there's dosages, and they may take way too much, and so then they feel very, very anxious. They're very paranoid, and that's one of the main reasons why they end up coming to the hospital.
So that's what I've tried to tell people, because here's the thing with a lot of these decision makers, Dr. Sampson, is that they say, well, this, and that, and here's the question. And yeah, I used to smoke weed, and I don't do that anymore. I don't do the recreational stuff anymore. But people say, well, the emergency room visits. And I said, that's just because people get twisted up in their head, because pot will do that to you. But I would ask these people, have you ever smoked marijuana? And they'd be like, well, no. I'm like, so you don't really know what it's like. You're just reading and studying, but you haven't ingested. You've never had that experience. You're not quite sure what it's like. So like they're coming in with like an elevated heart rate, things like that?
Yes. So their heart rate can be high. They also can be very, very sort of anxious or nervous. Mm-hmm. Some just kind of freaking out in some way.
And I think that's the most applicable medical term you could apply to that. People are just freaking out, man, because sometimes you get, you smoke the weed, you smoke too much. That's what happens. And then somebody comes into the ER, and they're coming in. They've got the elevated heart rate and all this, and they're freaking out. What do you do for an ER patient that's freaking out?
Well, there's a few things. One is first to just even sometimes just calming them down, getting them into a quiet environment, reassuring them that everything's okay. We can often, if they're having chest pain or they feel like their heart rate's very fast, we can do an EKG and check their heart and make sure it looks all right. And then sometimes it's just time. We can give medication sometimes to help people relax. But really, it's often you just got to kind of let that drug run its course.
And then you see people come in nervous, heart rate, and you give them medication to relax sometimes. What's the medication that you'll dole out?
We can use what are called benzodiazepines. So those are drugs such as midazolam, lorazepam. Those can help people sometimes, if they're really extremely anxious or having a bad experience from it.
So I just want to make sure I've got this right. So sometimes if people are really freaking out from ingesting the recreational weed, they come in. Sometimes one of the courses of treatment is to give them a prescription drug.
Yes, within the emergency department. We wouldn't send anybody home with that, but it's used in the setting of the emergency department to treat them.
Our guest this morning, Dr. Christopher Sampson, ER physician at MU Healthcare.
Yeah, Branden, thank you, Doctor. We appreciate your time and patience. And interesting, I appreciate you joining us and giving us your perspective on this and your experience. Are the majority of the folks that are coming into this emergency room or these emergency rooms, are they buying their recreational marijuana? Are they buying it at a dispensary and coming in there, or are most of them buying it on the street? Do you have a sense of where they're getting this, or is it both?
No, I think most actually are buying them from dispensaries. They're getting it through legal means. The biggest thing is that people don't. There's dosages, and if you look on the labels of the packages, or if you're buying, or they actually have different strengths, and I think that's where people really get confused because someone may buy a gummy and those are each a certain amount of milligrams, and then they may buy a candy bar that has 10 times or 20 times that in that whole candy bar, and they eat the entire candy bar. not realizing that then they've taken a whole lot of marijuana. I mean, I would almost put on the equivalence of if you were drinking for the first time and you drank an entire bottle of liquor versus having just a single drink.
Amen. That's a good way to put it. And I hope these dispensaries are being very vigilant about informing these people that are coming in and doing this stuff because, and I've been curious about this, Doctor, and I've been trying to talk to people. Okay, like the people that are going to the dispensaries and buying the recreational weed, are these people that have been smoking the weed all along? Is it people that now all of a sudden it's legal? Like, oh, okay, I wasn't smoking weed before, but now I'm going to. And I think you're getting a lot of that, or people that, messed around with it in high school and college, and then they got responsible, decided to put it by the wayside, but now it's legal. Hey, let's do this, honey. We'll relax on a Friday night. Kids are hanging out at a friend's house. Let's do this and chill. I hope, and you get a lot of people like that, and I hope these dispensaries are being very responsible and letting people know, hey, dosing, especially because, man, those edibles will get you. Our guest this morning, ER physician, Dr. Christopher Sampson. He is with MU Healthcare. We're talking about ER visits as it relates to recreational marijuana.
Doctor, you were talking about edibles. Have you seen much in the way of a census with kids inadvertently getting into them?
It definitely, looking at the literature with other states where it started, they do see an increase. I personally, we've seen a couple cases where that's happened. And it's like anything. I mean, any medication or any alcohol or drugs, you need to keep them out of the range of children. I think that children they're always curious. They may grab something and not know that. So, yeah, it's definitely a risk.
All right, Dr. Sampson, anything else that you would like to add before we let you go?
No, I think, again, it's just if you are going to use recreational marijuana, again, look at the dosing.
Yeah.
A lot of times, those dispensaries can be very helpful. And know that the marijuana that you may have smoked 10 and 20 years ago is a whole lot different than the marijuana they're selling in the dispensaries today.
And that's not an understatement. And, Doctor, when you go into work today, you're going to tell your coworkers, I was supposed to do this very informative conversation with Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle on 104.5 News Radio 950 KWS. They made me hold for 3 minutes so they could talk about male equivalent names for the restaurant Hooters. You going to tell that story today while you're working?
Oh, probably. And it probably won't be the least surprising thing I'll see either.
Dr. Sampson, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate you.
Okay, anytime. Bye-bye.
Right, coming up 5 minutes from now, we are getting bombarded with texts regarding a suggestion for Hooters, who's doing a special for Mother's Day. You bring in your mom and you get 10 for 10, basically buy one, get one free, half price, however you want to look at it. So we just got to wondering if there were a male equivalent for a Hooters restaurant, what would you call it? Text 874-9390.
ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious.
Biden has the distinction of probably having one of the worst, not just his presidency, but the people that he has surrounded himself with in the White House. Nina Jankowicz, of course, remember that disastrous launch of the disinformation board? We're going to fact check anything that comes out. And us Democrats, us progressive Democrats in the White House, we're going to be in charge of it. She is now suing Fox News. Remember they came out with that song to introduce the disinformation board, the Ministry of Truth in America. And she blew it right away.
Well, there were a lot of folks, mostly on the conservative side of the...
Yeah, they were saying, why are you doing this? Well, a lot of folks, mostly on the conservative side, which is complete and utter BS. When your boss, Joe Biden, is the guy who's telling lies every day, like I cut the deficit by $1.7 trillion by people like Alejandro Mayorkas, the border is secure. That's disinformation, man. These people completely disingenuous. She is suing Fox News, saying they defamed me. They hurt my feelings. She didn't have a chance in heck. And I'm not even an attorney. When you are in the public eye, there is nothing, in my eyes, that Fox did that was out of the realm of what they are allowed to do when we talk about your ineptitude. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Getting ready for Tobler. He's here at 8:10. I want to get his take on the CNN town hall meeting last night. My take immediately, nothing new there, really. But I want to see what he thinks. He hosts the Tobler Show weekdays 4 to 6 here on the radio station. I'm Branden Rathert, producer Hannah John Marsh. What's hot with Hannah? We do that every morning, 7:25. The one this morning, Mother's Day. Hannah's trying to get you hooked up for Mother's Day. Hooters doing a Mother's Day special. You take your mama in, and you get to buy 10 wings, and then you get 10 wings for mama for free. Somehow we got onto, if you had a dude's equivalent of that, what would you call that restaurant? 874-9390.
And when I say our texter exploded, it exploded. I think we got 35 text messages in like 2 or 3 minutes. It's crazy. I've never seen this before.
I think it's a record, seriously.
It might be. We're getting lots of repeat suggestions, so I'll just kind of summarize the top 3, perhaps. Peckers is a very common one.
So do we need to set up why Hooters is named Hooters? Is because, they have the owl on the shirts, and owls go, whoo. So Hooters. And it's also a euphemism for breasts.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. And
Thanks for that insight there, Rathert.
For the kids that are winding down the school year, for the kids listening in the backseat of the car with mom and dad, wanted to make sure they understood what we're talking about here.
And I guess Peckers is already maybe a thing, so we might be out of our $1 million idea.
Susie in Jefferson City, she's got an idea for a restaurant. It's Go Nads.
There you go.
Dave is in suburban Centralia this morning. How about Rooters with an R?
Well, I was going to say Rooters or Roosters is another common one here.
Rooters, you could serve nothing but pork products.
Oh, Dan says Johnson's.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Osage Beach. It's where we find Mark this morning on the text, 874-9390. Yeah, I better not do that one. Sorry.
Yeah, careful.
Keep yachts and dinghies from Lisa. Nautical theme.
That's good. Very good.
But she offers an explainer. Man, we love you guys so much. Male Hooters, yachts and dinghies. Because different sized boats.
Oh, yikes.
All right, you want to move forward? You want to stick on this one for a minute? You want to hear more?
Wait, I can't find the text, but somebody suggested the Hard Rock Cafe. Already a thing. But
Long John Silver's. Or how about the Rock Hard Cafe
instead
of the Hard Rock Cafe?
It's all in how you market it.
874-9390.
There's
Woody's.
So many text messages.
About Woody's.
Wait, we already...
We do.
Oh, I'm not sure the folks in Ashland would maybe appreciate the... They might not like the comparison that we're making there, but...
Beanies and weenies.
What type of food would be served at these restaurants? Is hot dogs too obvious?
Yeah, probably.
Hannah, stop it. Come on, man.
What?
Stephanie's back on Monday, and she's going to be mad. Tobler is here. He hosts the Tobler Show weekdays. 4 to 6. his take on the Trump town hall meeting last night.
is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Documents back like you did. And so that's the question.
$1,850.
But that's the question that investigators have, I think, is why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
you
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Sounds reminiscent of 2015, 2016, 2017. By the way, after that, I thought what was very telling here, something Trump said after that I thought was telling, to show there is kind of a Hollywood aspect to all of this. That's from last night's CNN town hall meeting. Trump, he goes and tells, after he has this exchange, he says, you're a nasty woman. By the way, a little disconcerting. The audience would laugh and cheer for that when you sit there and tell somebody else to their face for they're a horrible human being. I think that's kind of odd, but really nothing big, I think, really came out of that town hall. What I really did not like was this, what about the election? What about January 6th? What about this? Let's move forward. Let's talk about something in the future. Let's talk about something that is pertinent to now. Let's do that. And they didn't do that. Randy Tobler hosts the Tobler Show weekdays, 4 o'clock here on the radio station. What was your takeaway from this?
With you. I think it was more of the vintage Donald Trump that we saw in the 2016 cycle. I think we've got to stop looking backward and start looking forward. That's why fresh faces like Vivek and Tim Scott and others who will enter the race, I think, are going to give him a run for his money. There certainly is an art, as we saw in the packed audience that was GOP primary voters in New Hampshire. I mean, there's certainly a core audience for Trump. We hear it here on our shows. I know you do. I do. Gary does. A core audience who are always Trumpers, forever Trumpers, no matter what. And I'm just not sure in the general election whether that's a wise posture. But if he would have said to her, why do you keep asking incessant questions about this or that? Why, if he would have made it about her questioning the way she was conducting the interview, instead of personalizing it and calling her a nasty person. I know some people think that bullying style is fun, and you can get a kick out of it from entertainment. But it's certainly not the way I think you and I and the people that we like to associate with conduct ourselves. Yeah. And I'm not sure. I think that's wearing old on the American electorate.
But it was fun. It was fun. It was. But as far as moving things forward on what we're trying to do as a country, what we want to do, and I guess, we all know Trump's policies, so there would be nothing new there. So I don't know what you do in that situation. It was a rehash of a lot of old stuff, but it was fun to watch, Trump wheeling and dealing and So that's
he's a great entertainer. Yeah. But here we are on the day that Title 42 expires, and I mean there are record. I mean, no country in the world's history has seen this kind of an invasion of illegals. We see the economy teetering on the brink of recession. People can't afford their rent or their mortgage or their car payments or their eggs or butter. And, we've got the Biden crime family being pointed out in great detail. There was a lot of nice fodder there to really make some good points, good policy points. He did hit on the immigration thing, which I think was important. Yep. I keep hearing that he's going to solve the war in 24 hours, the Ukraine war. It'll be over in 24 hours. Where's the follow-up question? How are you going to do that, Mr. President? No, seriously, how are you going to do that, Mr. President? Don't dodge. How are you going to do that?
Because we love that you're saying that. I'll end the war in 24. Okay, cool. How? And I think that is important. How? All right, our guest, Randy Tobler, host of the Randy Tobler Show, weekday afternoons 4 to 6. He's hanging out with us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, joined by producer Hannah, who has started a firestorm this morning regarding names. So Mother's Day is coming up, Randy, Sunday, and Hannah's trying to do a public service announcement by letting us dudes know, because it's Thursday, letting us know Thursday, hey, Mom's Day is coming up. You got your gift handled yet? Here's an idea. Hooters is doing something. Dude, you take your mom to Hooters, and Mom gets free hot wings. You buy 10, she gets 10 for free. I don't know how we got here, but if you had a name that was the male equivalent of Hooters, what would it be? I've been
listening, man. I'm telling you, the text lines are blowing up. Right, everyone's got a thought on this.
Jamie says,
I don't think such a restaurant would do well. That's the question that's interests me. Would women patronize a restaurant like that? Maybe they would.
Guess who most of our texts are coming from? Women.
Really?
I'd say it's 50-50.
Yeah.
This one from Colleen. Beans and Franks.
I guess Randy didn't like that one.
The Beans and Franks, that offended him, John.
That'll teach you.
He was cool with everything else, like Jamie's suggestion. He was cool with P.F. Wang's, but he drew the line at...
He tried to call back in, and I accidentally hung up on it. Whoops.
And that was the one that got him. McGroins is on the list.
That's good.
Man, there's just some really, really...
There's a lot we can't read on air.
And those are the best ones.
I know.
Hooters alternative, Peckers per the Pecks, because we're talking about Hooters. Hooters is named, because it's a slang term for woman's breast, so slang term for a dude's breast, Peckers. Tobler, we didn't mean to offend you with the Beans and Franks comment.
No, you didn't. All I can say is you've really got asking me that question really has me in a pickle. I just don't know what to say.
Pickles.
Pickles.
I got it. Okay.
Hannah caught it.
I did.
Okay.
I did.
But do you think the gals would, if there were a bunch of Chippendale-esque kind of people, say Marsh, Rathert, Hausworth, Hansen, Tobler, Nolan? I mean, if we were there in our best Chippendales outfit, do you think anyone would show up?
We'll be out of business in a week.
That is not a sight I needed to envision. Thank you, Randy.
Spencer is in.
Remember the time there was a time when Hausworth showed up in the studio. It was hot. Was it last summer? And the upstairs pool up on the deck, on the upper deck of the studio, the pool. He was in his Speedo. It was an amazing sight. You should have seen it. It was really something.
Brian Hausworth lives on a golf course, and a lot of times you will see him out in his Speedo and flip-flops and a St. Louis Cardinals ball cap, but he wears it backwards, and he'll be shirtless usually, playing golf on his golf course.
Kind of like a pale Tiger Woods.
Kind of. Spencer is in St. Martin's this morning. He says, how about the name Trunks? 874-9390 if you want to text us your suggestions. P.F. Wang's. I think right now that's my favorite. All right, Randy Tobler, host of the Tobler Show. The town hall. Here was my other big takeaway from this last night.
And you know what? If I don't win, this country is going to be in big trouble. It's so sad to see what's happening.
But no commitment.
You know what? And he is, and I don't know necessarily that if I want him to win. I think DeSantis far has a better chance to win a general election than Trump. No matter how passionate Republicans are about Trump, Republicans got to remember it's not Republicans that are going to decide this election. It's the independents and the in-betweeners. But Trump, I absolutely 100% agree with him there. If Joe Biden remains in office, man, we're screwed, Randy. Really.
Yeah.
These aren't fear tactics. It's not fear-mongering. It's simple truth for me. How about for you?
I agree. I mean, I think that now, more than any, the momentum has gone so far, and that snowball is rolling so fast down the hill and accumulating more and more momentum when it comes to climate change and redistribution of wealth and reparations and all the things that, a decade ago, your eyebrows would have come off of your head, right, when someone suggested these things. And I don't see that momentum stopping if a second Biden term comes into play. I just really don't. And because they have the bully pulpit. Let's be honest. That Oval Office bully pulpit means an awful lot. And I'm not sure that Donald Trump is the right one to undo that. I think someone that speaks to a broader swath of America is the right one. Yep. But look, I would gladly vote for Trump and will vote for Trump if he is the guy that that is our nominee. I'm not sure that my vote's going to offset all of the people in the middle who are just tired of Trump. They're just tired of him.
Our guest, Randy Tobler. You hear him weekday afternoons here on the radio station. Here's why I like to listen to the show, because I get busy during the day. I don't always get a chance to pay attention to news, but I tune in to Tobler on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS. And here's what happened today. Here's how these things are affecting me, and then I'm home.
Are you saying that you use Randy Tobler's show as show prep for your show?
Hannah calls me when we do our afternoon meeting. She says, "What are you doing on the show tomorrow morning, Branden?" I don't know. Let me listen to Tobler, and I'll call you back at 6. Randy Tobler is hanging out with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Randy, now that the pandemic has been declared officially over, folks who present at the doctor's office and wonder about vaccines and COVID tests and all, what's the status of that now?
Well, the official status is get your vaccine. That really hasn't changed, from the CDC and the official organizations that advise doctors, how to advise their patients. I think more and more patients are challenging doctors to say, tell me why I should get this vaccine. And the answer is probably you should get it in a few selected cases for people that have underlying problems, that are autoimmune, impaired, and other problems. I get that. But I think for the most part, doctors are advising their patients to really carefully consider their overall health, to try to maximize their immune competencies, and to be smart. Listen to the Eagle and KWAS, and make sure that there's nothing that's sweeping into the area COVID-wise that might regenerate a new conversation on it. But I think for the most part, practicing doctors that I know are just not as avid about it in general as they used to be.
All right, Randy Tobler hosts the Randy Tobler Show today, 4 o'clock. Do you know what you're doing on your show today?
Yep, we're going to be talking to Show Me's Institute. And again, I think we're going to keep talking about our local public safety and the big looming problem we're having in Columbia. This Katy Trail thing has people worked up. My wife was just like, man, I wanted to go walk that trail and really start exploring it. We're sort of new Colombians, and she's like, gosh darn, I feel like I can't even do that now. Where's it all going? So I think that continuation that discussion will happen.
And John, we just saw the same thing happen in Jeff City just about.
Sure did.
It's crazy. Well, seriously, if you guys want to get it, there's a couple of trails I walk. Some of them I walk almost every day. I'll be happy to turn you all on to that. Randy Tobler hosts the Tobler Show this afternoon, 4 o'clock here on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS. Check him out, man. We appreciate you, Randy.
Hey, you too. Thanks.
All right, we'll see. All right, coming up, Morning Bell, business news. Business news, a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you. She is back on Monday. So why are airlines fuming this morning? We will have that story. Plus, Dow was down. Dow closing down yesterday. cool thing about Southwest Airlines, typically they are cheaper. And that's always used to be my fascination with flying Southwest Airlines. But then you get to a point in life like, you know what? I'm not going to act like this is a cheese line at the first of the month trying to elbow everybody out so I can get the seat that I want on the Southwest Airlines flight. But we bring that up because new airline satisfaction survey, customer satisfaction with air travel, way down for the second year in a row, heading into what could be another summer of nightmare travel. This is according to J.D. Power and Associates. And it matters because it sums up basically what we have experienced. Number one, higher ticket prices. No kidding, my goodness. Crowded planes and limited options. Because they do. What other options do you have? There's only so many first-class seats that are on an airplane. And there's only so much money in my bank account. I can't be going and buying first-class tickets.
And there are so many airlines that don't even offer first class anymore.
Southwest. Guess who ranked the highest in customer satisfaction in the first-class business category for a second year? It was JetBlue, followed by Delta and United. Overall satisfaction this year, 791 on a scale of 1,000. That's down 7 points. It's down almost 30 points in 2 years. The intrigue, Southwest customer satisfaction score fell. This airline Steph's on right now in D.C. while she's doing, D.C. stuff. Southwest customer satisfaction score fell 22 points, but it was still the highest ranking airline in the economy, basic economy segment for a second consecutive year. By the way, so there's in the United States, there's an effort to really focus on these airlines getting to pay people for delayed flights and things like that. And there are some instances where they got to pay you, they got to give you a ticket credit. But the airlines, in effect, are saying, okay, go ahead. Make us, for every delayed flight, make us pay for food, make us buy drinks or whatever for these customers that are stranded because of delays. Guess what we are going to do as an airline industry? We're going to raise our prices even more if you are going to force us to do those kinds of things. And that's one of those things I don't like, government regulation. More government regulation. And here's a perfect example. More regulation, guess what? It means higher cost. If they're going to require airlines to do all these things that cost them money, the prices go up. That's why stuff doesn't work. That's the morning bell. We did What's Hot with Hannah. Something we do every morning. 7:25 is here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWS. And it's just something fun. She's trying to help us out with some ideas for Mother's Day. Hooters Restaurant on Sunday. You take your mama into Hooters. And it could be not just a son taking a mom into Hooters. A daughter could take a mom into Hooters. You buy 10 wings. Mom gets 10 wings for free. And we thought, what if there was a male version of Hooters? By far, hottest topic ever here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. A couple of folks have texted. There's apparently there's an actual chain called Tallywhackers, but I don't know if it means it's dudes that are dressing up in somewhat revealing clothing.
You haven't dared to Google it yet?
Yeah, I unfortunately did.
Uh-oh.
It's kind of a gay-themed restaurant chain.
God.
John Marsh taking one for the team.
How about that? You're a good man, John.
Yeah, okay. I won't be able to unsee that website for a while, though.
Yes, you know what everybody's doing right now? But man, when I get into work, I'm going to Google Tallywhackers and see what that's about. Coming up a few minutes from now, legendary Missouri sports personality. He's in the news this morning. It's not for a bad reason. It's not for a good reason. It's just an interesting reason. You got to hear this story. It's coming up 5 minutes from now here on the show.
The hip socket sinks, okay? So Bo's got a bum hip, so what? Look what he's doing with that hip. He's hitting the bike, he's hitting the weight. He's wearing the shoes. As a matter of fact, he's in the pool, wearing the shoes, riding a bike with 120 pounds of weight strapped to his neck, okay? And what are you and your good hip doing right now? What?
Yeah, 1992 Nike TV ad. Dennis Leary and Bo Jackson, who starred for the Kansas City Royals, who actually they picked up a rare win they picked up a win last night. Bo Jackson making news this morning. God, can you imagine, John, what he would have done if he didn't have to end his career early, or if at the very least he didn't play football and just stuck with the Royals? Can you imagine?
Bo knows.
Bo knows. He's making news this morning. Here's why. He's doing an interview with somebody. We know Bo Jackson went to school at Auburn. Another dude
heck of a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, God, he was just such a stacked athlete.
Had a great, he had a cannon for an arm. I've never seen it. He could climb walls. I agree with you. It was an injury he suffered. I can see it in my head. 1990 against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I kind of sensed somebody tackled him from behind. You just got a sense it didn't look good, but we had no idea then how bad it was. He was never the same after that.
Well, now he's 60 years old, and he's kind of, putzing around, living life, even sometimes does interviews. He was doing an interview earlier this week, and somebody asked him, so like Frank Thomas, who's a slugger, Hall of Fame, 500-plus home runs in his career, most of it with the Chicago White Sox. He also graduated from Auburn.
He did.
So they do this statue dedication for Frank Thomas at Auburn. And somebody asked Bo, you kind of should have been there. Why weren't you there? Here was the excuse he offered. I had the hiccups. True story. He says, I wasn't there because I was dealing with hiccups. Then the story gets really good. Says, I've had the hiccups for almost a year now. So apparently he got the hiccups over the summer, and they haven't stopped. And I've heard stories like this. I don't know what causes it. I don't even know what causes hiccups in the first place.
It can be very serious. It can. My father has had some issues like that.
What happens in that situation?
It can be scary. It has to do with acid. Now, I can't speak for Bo Jackson's situation, but it sounds like it could be an issue of acid. Far be it from me to diagnose it from here, but it sounds like it could be an acid reflux situation. And yes, it can be based on what my father has gone through. It can be scary, and they don't go away. It's just now that's obviously a long time, but that's very scary. And you can't hardly function.
So this is a guy who won a Heisman Trophy, excelled at two sports, excelled in two different professional sports.
Yes.
I'd say he's better than Deion Sanders as far as a two-star athlete is concerned. And I'm being a little bit of a homeboy because he played for our Royals. So, yeah, I'm going to favor him a little bit. Busted hip, two sports. Yeah, the hiccups might be what takes it down.
It's amazing.
And I've wondered, he says yes, because here's what happens. Hiccups, they're funny for 2 or 3 minutes, maybe, when you get the hiccups. And then it's kind of like, and then after 5 minutes, it's not funny anymore.
Except Branden has a gift, and I've never understood this. When Branden hiccups, it's usually a one-and-done type of thing.
That's interesting.
Whereas I get stuck with them for, 10-plus minutes. Branden hiccups once, and he's done.
I bet if I kept my mouth shut, I probably wouldn't hiccup as much. Welcome to the show.
That's good information. And I
thought you were going to say this is a good idea, Branden.
I think was it a teaspoon, or I'm trying to remember what they used to say would solve that. Sugar, I can't remember, but I do. Kind of a nuisance more than anything else, but yes, it can be very serious.
Drinking water out of the backside of a glass. And
yes.
Scaring you. Well, that was another one,
That was another one.
Hanging upside down. I, incidentally, have never found any of these to work. I think it's what happens. You do it, and you're like, well, somebody said gargle with salt water while I'm doing a handstand with my back against the wall. And so you're trying to do it, and you do it for 5 minutes, and finally the hiccups go away, and you go, oh, it worked. That's the solution. Gargle salt water while you're doing a handstand with your back against the wall, and that will solve the hiccups. It doesn't solve the hiccups. It's just enough time has gone by while you're trying to do this silly cure to fix it.
The only one I have found that works is holding your breath for 10 minutes.
Chris, Chris off the text 874-9390. Hiccups can also be related to a diaphragm disorder or even a brain lesion that affects a certain nerve. Another listener going back to the Morning Bell business news. Airline industry ratings. Flying is overrated. 6.6. I found it easier and cheaper to drive if it's within 15 hours. Even with gas prices, it's still cheaper. And I get to see the scenery and travel at my own pace. Amen, brother. We appreciate you listening.
Back to Chris's text about the hiccups. Now, every time Branden gets the hiccups, he's going to be paranoid that he has a diaphragm disorder. So thanks a lot, Chris.
And diaphragm, in this instance, the diaphragm we're talking about here is part of how you talk and how you...
Nobody was thinking about the other type.
Apparently I was. All right, let's move forward. Can I introduce everybody? There's Brian Houseworth.
So good to see you.
There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Marcius, are you still here, buddy?
Yeah, I'm playing the role of Brian Bosworth on the radio this week.
We really have put these news guys through the ringer today. Bless their hearts.
There's just a very, very quick comment I wanted to make on the end of session tomorrow that is to remind people who will remember this. And the speaker at the time used to use that time to actually get stuff done. But the end of session used to be, it's always been on a Friday, but it used to end at midnight on Friday. Now, some of our listeners that will remember that. I mean, it was a huge deal, and they would go down there.
Big party.
Well, big parties. You'd have skits and stuff, but the biggest thing is Jet Banks would change into a new suit every hour. Every hour. And that man...
Senator Banks.
Senator J.B. Jet Banks, he ended up...
neon-colored leisure suits.
Yeah, it was incredible, but now they go to 6, so not quite as late. But it used to be you'd walk out of there 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because it would go to midnight.
Some of the biggest parties that happen here in mid-Missouri as it relates to Capitol happenings in Jefferson City, the governor's ball to start the session. That's like Mardi Gras in Jeff City. And then the last night of session, man, it gets insane in certain places. Welcome into the show. Glad you are here. One of the things that's been covered in the legislature this year, takeover of the St. Louis Police Department. And then, of course, we know the issues that we've had with Kimberly Gardner. She said, I'm not going to resign. They're going to pull me out. And then she was all bold and everything in that church. But then a couple days later when things got real, she says, I'm going to leave June 1st. And then the interesting story shooting. We have this woman on video with the gun. They're not charging her. They're saying it's an uncooperative witness, which happens in a lot of those hoods where that behavior happens.
Well, and again, her comment at the church was kind of defiant. She said, I ain't going anywhere. I mean, that's what she said, her words. But she said she'll stay till June the 1st. And I've seen the media coverage of that shooting on Cherokee Street, which happened at apparently a Cinco de Mayo celebration. And there is a man and a woman. He's wearing a Cardinal, as I recall, a Cardinal jersey or shirt, and she's out in the street as well. I believe she's wearing Cardinal attire too. But they have them on video now. What I don't see in any of those videos is them firing the weapon, but Kim Gardner is being it's Jane Duker and a number of other people who've been critical of her in the past that are saying she needs to step up, and it looks like that they're not going to be charged.
So, and here's what I'm wondering. So Governor Parson told us yesterday that he wants to have somebody in. So it's up to him to pick a replacement for her. He would like to have somebody by June the 1st, which is when she is supposed to leave. But here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Governor Parson, who has done really good work as governor of Missouri, incidentally. He's like you could say he's stepping into a minefield. He's stepping out into an open field during hunting season wearing a brown fur coat. That's what he's doing here. Because what's going to happen if he picks somebody who is not black or female? He's in a no-win situation. Do you get that sense? Like, well, you got to pick a black female because that's who you're replacing. And I think Mike Parson is of the mindset, say, BS, I got to pick the best person for the job, especially considering what they've been through. And a name that's out there, by the way, is Judge Michael Noble.
He is certainly out there.
He was the one that very politely told it like it was in a span of 90 seconds about Kim Gardner, a conscious subversion of the justice system, willful. I mean, he just laid it.
Utterless, I believe, what did he say? Ship of chaos, I believe.
Ship of Chaos is what he called it. So that's a name out there. I think he would be a good choice. But it just seems like, John G., like a potential minefield for the governor here if he doesn't make the right choice.
Well, the bottom line is under the state constitution, and you hit it on the head. Regardless of what you see on social media, the fact of the matter is the governor has the right to make that appointment, period. End of argument. Now, will he choose an African-American woman? He could choose anybody he really chooses. He's looking for someone based on his criteria. Law and order is a big deal. He said he's looking for I'm trying to remember how he phrased it, someone who's from the St. Louis community. He didn't say specifically St. Louis City. So I thought that was interesting. But people have to understand the Constitution. The governor has the authority to do that. He's going to make that appointment. And by the way, I kept seeing media outlets saying the governor's threatening to call legislatures back into special session, threatening to go. The governor writes calls for a special session. If he wanted to call them back he won't, next week, and say, I want you to take up the designated hitter, I got news for you, folks. They're coming back, and they're going to talk about the designated hitter. The fact of the matter is elections have consequences, and when you are the governor, you write the calls for a special session. I would encourage, people just have to realize that he has the authority to do that. I think it's very clear, though, the governor's made it clear he's working with Mayor Jones and others, and we'll see. We'll see who he ends up picking. But I've heard Noble's names. I've heard some other names, too.
And meanwhile, for other vacant offices, Jefferson City, Fourth Ward Council seat, process is underway to replace that seat. That's the seat Ron Fitzwater used to have. Of course, he is now mayor. CPS, Columbia Public School Board, they're going to hold a special session, discuss the process to fill the board vacancy after Catherine Sasser, Toby Keith did in that meeting the other night. I want to talk about me, I. I'm going to resign and make a spectacle out of myself and a political statement. If the Columbia Public School District had any decency, any shred of honorable quality, you look at the election results. Coming in for the top 3 vote getters just a month ago. Yes. They won. They get seats. Person that came in 4th place, Chuck Basie. The Columbia Public School District should absolutely appoint Chuck Basie, in my opinion. They won't because it's not what they want. I would call the Columbia. I got their phone number. It's 214-3400. Call the front desk there at the Columbia Public School District and let them know what you want. 214-3400. 214-3400 coming up just a few minutes from now. Leftovers, some interesting things that we have in leftovers for you this morning. And you never know, it's almost like spinning a wheel. Well, you know how it is. You open the fridge and you
Leftovers. Enjoy.
Some leftovers, a couple of things we did not get an opportunity to get into on the show. It was good enough we brought it home here in Leftovers. So, by George, we're going to go ahead and dabble into this a little bit. I did want to mention Andrea Wehner, who's a member of the Columbia City Council. I will tell you, I don't like Andrea's politics, and we've had a couple of personal dealings. She's pretty cool, but I want to tell you something. Several months ago, we were chatting with City Councilman Matt Pitzer, who had been really the lone conservative on the Columbia City Council. And I had said something that was critical, in my opinion, of Andrea Wehner, and I will always appreciate Matt Pitzer for this. He said this on air. He says, "Hey, Brandon," he says, "Andrea Wehner works really hard," and he actually had a lot of respect for her, and that kind of made me stop back for a minute. It's one of those moments, you kind of think about the things you say, and then you go right back to your old behaviors. But apparently she is not going to be seeking re-election due to a cancer diagnosis. Ocular melanoma is what it's called. She said she was going for a regular optometry exam. She goes every year because she's worn glasses since a kid. And this exam happened to show a massive cancer, a 14-millimeter mass. I don't know how large that is on an eye. So I did want to mention that she's decided not to run for re-election. Marsh, what do you got for leftovers?
How about some props for our KWOS Sportscasters Club Scholarship recipient, Danny Bucher from Elias High School, who's a multi-year, multi-sport athlete and a scholar in soccer and cross country and track. She's our scholarship recipient and will be playing her college soccer at Drury in Springfield. So hats off to Danny.
Isn't that cool? You were there. You got to give away a scholarship check. How did you like that, man?
That was fun. I'd known her mom and dad for years, and also it was kind of a surprise for all of us that Danielle got the scholarship award.
Tonight, John and we're going to be hanging out in Jefferson City, the big old Jefferson City Chamber of Commerce barbecue, as I understand it. I didn't get a chance to talk with Gary Plummer, head of the chamber in Jefferson City. I'm assuming, I guess you could get tickets at the door. I probably should have asked before I went to air with it, but I'm guessing tickets still, at the very least, contact the Jefferson City Chamber today. They're doing the big chamber barbecue in the venue. Man, I love this place. Also in Jefferson City. Man, I'd love to have been there. 7:30. Public Works and Planning Committee started a meeting 7:30 this morning regarding parking downtown. I wonder
Some of the downtown businesses in Jefferson City apparently aren't too happy with the moratorium on some of the non-metered parking areas.
Yeah, so the businesses, they're getting upset like, hey, we want people coming in and out of our businesses. We want them to have a place to park. What are you hearing, or what have you seen, John?
Yeah, and I think that's a concern. It probably, is one of those deals where they're concerned that the access to those non-metered parking areas, if you can park there all day and you're a lobbyist or a state government employee, and people don't have ready access to those businesses. So I can understand their issue with it.
Also in leftovers, and I'm including this, I'm not trying to keep beating up on Bud Light, but man, people like the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and even liberal national media outlets continue to do stories about this. And the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, what's notable there is obviously, you want to protect the hometown team, and Bud Light, Budweiser, that's the hometown team, even though it's owned by InBev out of Germany. It's still the hometown team. But here's what's interesting about that. So since April, since the whole thing with sending some beer to this dude that thinks he's a girl to celebrate his womanhood, sales have plummeted. But I'll tell you what's the only reason I'm bringing this up here, what I find very interesting is sales nationwide for like Coors up, and it matches
way up.
And I'll tell you what's fascinating about it, John. It matches numbers that I've heard from local distributors, of course. It's crazy. You are in for a real treat. My dad's favorite show, Gary Nolan Show's coming up next. See ya.